it is time. It is a big one, man. It is a big one. Welcome in. I hope everyone's having a fantastic week, a fantastic Friday. We are back for another episode of All Tied Up with Chris Marler and Clint Lamb. And we are back to, listen, first off, we've missed the last 2 weeks before the show. We've done other shows, but we haven't done a Friday preview show, which we are, I say we, I have personally blamed Clint for the performance of this team over the last 2 weeks, and I do think it's his fault, not Kane Womack. It's also his.
I was sick both weeks, so wasn't like it was one you, one me. It was definitely me both times.
Yeah, I'm sick of your attitude, to be honest, and I'm sick of also playing inferior opponents and looking terrible in doing so. I'm fired up. It is Bama-Tennessee. It's the third Saturday in October. It is a cigar game. It's a rivalry game. Clint, how the hell are you, man?
Dude, these are the games you live for, right? And with the way that
These are the games that make me want to die. I'm so nervous
that you live for. Yeah.
I
mean, that's kind of, how is that not the same thing?
Yeah.
But it's giving me life, right? Yeah. I mean, looking at it all week, to me right now, both teams, like, I still don't know. We've seen Bama kind of at their absolute peak. I mean, I don't know if you can play much better than you did against Georgia in the first quarter. Yeah. We haven't seen that out of Tennessee, so we really don't know what their ceiling is. But is their ceiling beating Georgia 28-0? I mean, I don't know. So, like, even though we've seen a lot of football, I mean, half a season's worth, half a regular season at least, I still. The kind of Jekyll and Hyde stuff is still throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah, from both. Like what's been weird about these two teams is they have really mirrored each other, like almost from week to week. Like, listen, people have put a lot of stock into that last 30 minutes of the Bama game against Georgia. I'm going to choose to put a lot more stock into the first 30 minutes because I think, like you said, that's the ceiling. But then you go on the road against Vanderbilt and you somehow lose that game. Not somehow. I mean, you got beat in that game. Tennessee goes on the road against Arkansas, place that had not listen, like Vandy hadn't beaten Bama in 40 years. Arkansas hadn't won against a top 5 team in Fayetteville since 1999 against Tennessee. They win. So this historic collapse for them as they had like a 14-3 lead in the fourth quarter and had a backup quarterback in. Then you go to the following week and Bama's playing South Carolina and just completely unravels at the end of the first half. And we're in very, very much in danger of losing that game. Then you go to the night game, and Tennessee is playing Florida, a Florida team that loses their starting quarterback and doesn't look great. And it takes them to overtime to go beat them. So they have really mirrored each other. I'm fired up because I do feel like if there's one thing you can give Kalen DeBoer credit for, did he go into Vanderbilt not as focused as that team should have been? Sure. Did he not have as great of a game plan, especially his defensive side of the ball? Did not have a great game plan against South Carolina, especially for the second and third quarter? Absolutely. But he coached his ass off against Georgia in the first part of that game and then to go win the game. So I hope that's the version we get this weekend.
This is going to be the test, right? Because I still am kind of this belief that, and I think it's a tough lesson that maybe Kalen DeBoer and that current staff is learning, but you got to take every opponent seriously. You can't kind of be like, okay, well, we're much better than them, so we'll do some stuff to kind of prepare, but we should be able to out-talent them. Like, I have this belief. It's just felt that way. I mean, the only time really this season where it didn't feel like going in that Alabama had a sizable advantage was against Georgia. And they came out absolutely swinging both sides of the football, great game plan, both sides of the football, and you saw 28-0. And then because they were in such a commanding lead, they start, it feels like they start to treat the second half of that game like it's, hey, we're feeling really good about our chances to win. If they go into this Tennessee game, there's no way you're going into Neyland Stadium with feeling really good like you're going to win. I mean, no. That they should be bringing their A game. If they don't, and the game plan isn't great, and they're not prepared defensively and all these different things, then I'll stop harping on that being a possibility.
Yeah.
I still need to see, it's 1/2. It's such a small sample size, but you also saw this out of Kalen DeBoer and other stops too.
Mm-hmm.
He plays down the competition. A lot of games that shouldn't be close are, but against the really, really good teams, if he's playing Kirby Smart now, if he's playing Dan Lanning, if he's playing Steve Sarkisian, Lincoln Riley, he brings it. His team brings it, and they're prepared. So we'll see how that looks. But I'm encouraged because if you're going to have to deal with those kind of valleys like you saw the last couple of weeks, surely you can get, some of those peaks as well.
I just want to let you know real quick that Allie is rolling her eyes as aggressively as possible at your positivity.
Hey, and we'll find out. I mean, we're like 24 hours from finding out, and I will be the first one on here next week. In fact, we just won't do a show next week. I'll bail on you for sure. You're the first one getting cut as far as bailing on shows because I'm afraid she's going to be in the background. I don't think I can handle that.
Dude, I will say this. The Georgia game, she was in Auburn for the Georgia game and was like, for Georgia, Bama. And I tell you what, we went up 28-0. My only thought was, I was like, hurry up, let the clock run out. I am ready to get these tweets off. Like I am ready to be insufferable on the mentions. I think my exact words were to one Georgia fan. I was like, hey, Bobby Wilson, front and effing center right now. I was fired up. But I think the thing with this weekend is Jaylen Milroe. Here's the thing. That's about as bad of a start that he's had. I think that I can date back to either Texas or Ole Miss of last year. It was some game in September, guaranteed. Like, people forget that Ole Miss game. He was great. He came off the bench. He had that huge throw to put us up by 14 in the second half. But we had like a 1st and goal where I think he threw an interception.
Now, who's this against?
The Ole Miss last year.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. And then there was another 1st and goal where it's like he had a snap go over somebody's head, or maybe it was the same drive. I don't know. But it was just like, man, what are they doing? That's about as inexplicable of a offensive series and an interception that I have ever seen him throw last week against South Carolina. So I think that'll be corrected. But even so, dude is still the best quarterback in the SEC of current starters, leads the SEC in completion percentage, leads in passer rating, leads, I think he's like 4th in the country in passer rating on third downs. Like in the entire country, leads the entire country in total touchdowns on third downs with 7. The interceptions, we got to figure out a way to get those fixed, right? The 2 of them were tips against Georgia and against against Vandy. But I think he's got to go in there and play a much cleaner game. The offensive line has to play a much cleaner game. But here's the one thing too, Clint, that people don't understand, that we haven't really that I think people are still so high on the and hungover from the Georgia game, and then in shock from the Vandy game, that it's almost like, what just like a fever dream of a few weeks for Bama fans. But like, they're about to get healthy. Listen, we're going to get into the players here maybe now that like to stand up. Fine. I'm technically the host, even though I'm the least professional of the group. So we'll just get into the actual topic for most important players for this weekend. And I will start, and I'll take a little bit of a cop out here, but Kendrick Law or Kobe Prentice. The depth that Bama has not had at receiver this year has been very noticeable. And Ryan Williams is great, but at some point, and I said this like South Carolina has one of the best defenses in the SEC. And I do Locked On Gamecocks. I cover them, and I've been really familiar with their team all year. Were there concerns about how good their offense was last week? For sure. There definitely were. But defensively, that's who they've been all season. They have been one of the best teams in the SEC all season. Defensively, they turn you over. They frustrate you. They get to the quarterback. Tennessee has some of those components, but they do it at a much lower level than South Carolina. And Tennessee fans might not like hearing that, but it's true. Listen, James Pierce is great. They don't have 2 of them. South Carolina does. Right? Like Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart are both monsters off the edge. They do not turn you over as well. They do make a lot of self-inflicted errors. I think that getting the depth back at receiver with Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, a guy that doesn't really show up a ton in the receiving yards or receptions in the stat sheet. It's a guy that had multiple touchdowns called back in like the reverse and run game, misdirection type stuff. Last year had one against Auburn, had one against somebody else too. that's a guy that, from that standpoint, he's your strongest offensive skill position player, one of your fastest, can like really be a huge benefit on the perimeter in terms of blocking. I think that one or both of those guys are gonna have to step up, and I think they will, and have a big game on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, kind of Kendrick Law in particular. I think Kobe Prentice too, just from a depth standpoint, given some different looks. Like I can't remember the last time, and I could be way wrong on this. Maybe it literally happened last year, as recently as last year, but it just feels like it's been forever. I do the snap count observations every week, but Bernard was on the field for every single snap this past week against South Carolina. I think Ron Williams only missed 2. The way that things have been structured with Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice out is it's felt kind of 2021-esque, where you had the top 2 guys, John Mechie and Jamison Williams, who were like clearly just way ahead of everybody else as far as usage, as far as, snaps and all those things. And then you had the number 3, Slade Bolden, at least this past week, that was Cole Adams. And he was making some of those. I think he's a lot more explosive. I think he can do more after the catch, so he's not the same player. But I think as far as being that reliable, like he gets a couple of targets, and he turned it into 57 yards. I mean, he had like a 30-yard gain and a 27-yard gain. One of them was a really heads-up play as far as spinning off the defender, not, touching the ground, and then kept going. But he has been playing good football, so he's going to continue to be a part of the rotation. But I think last week, like when, I noticed this and I put it in my snap count observations, you saw, I think Caleb Odom had 14 snaps and Emmanuel Henderson only had 4. And I thought that was really interesting. But when you really start to look at it, 75% of Caleb Odom's snaps, they were asking him to block. And of the 4 snaps that Emmanuel Henderson was on the field, 75% of those were asking him to run a route. And so I think what they were trying to do is recapture some of that magic, that Kendrick Law perimeter blocking magic, through Caleb Odom. I mean, everybody thought he was going to play tight end, and he's playing receiver. He's almost 230 pounds. He's 6'5", and he's young, but he can block. So I think that might have been what they were trying to do, is establish a little bit of that, because that's such a big part of Alabama's offense. Like, one thing that you can bank on is if it's second and long and you're playing Georgia and you're on defense, you need to be looking out for a tunnel screen, because what they want to do is they want to create a favorable third down situation, and they are very, very good at turning those tunnel screens into 6, 7 yard, 8-yard gains and making it a very third and manageable. Alabama is not, they're not fully committed to something like that, but their perimeter quick passing game, when you've got blockers, you can create more favorable situations. And they haven't gotten that as much. Now, they've still been good, but they've had to do it in different ways. Being able to throw variety at Tennessee's defense, I think, is really important. So Kendrick Law certainly would be up there for me. What I'm doing here, and I did tell you it was kind of players to watch.
Yeah.
I'm taking more of a matchup approach, which is, and what I'm going to do for the first one is I'm going to say Squirrel White versus Devontae Smith. I think that's really interesting, because Tennessee's offense, really, like the first 4 games, Squirrel White was averaging, I think, like 2.75 targets per game. The last 2, he's averaged 8.5. So 17 targets over the last 2. The slot usage has really jumped in this offense. And I think that's, you've seen them have limited offensive production, but with everything that, as far as Nico struggling with some of the downfield stuff, I think that just getting him in a very big game like this comfortable, I think they're going to try to highlight Squirrel White early. Now, they're definitely going to press vertically. Brazil is definitely going to be a part of that. 6'5", 200 pounds, big body guy. But Devontae Smith there at Husky, I think he's having a really good year, especially as a run defender. And I think it's very important. Squirrel White's very, Squirrel's a really good nickname for him. He's tough to cover. He was tough to cover last year when Alabama played him. And I think that they're certainly going to try to highlight him and his skill set.
I like that. So here's a thing for me in this game. The receivers coming into this season for Tennessee, I thought they had the deepest and most talented receiving core they've had there since the late 90s, to be honest. I that's how I thought it was going to be. I don't want to lose at all. I definitely don't want to lose to Mike Matthews. And that kid is a freshman, former 5-star. I think he's kind of banged up. Like he hasn't been a huge role player. he went to my former high school, and I cannot deal with another Brad Lester situation where we are losing to a rival because of a kid that I went to high school with, but went to the same high school. I just don't want to see Mike Matthews beat Alabama. I don't want to see anybody beat Alabama, but I definitely don't want to see that. Here's my next player, and I'll use two because I'm bad at this game. Keon Sabb, Malachi Moore. Malachi, I thought played great at times against South Carolina, like a much better and a leadership standpoint, something that defense really needed. Do you remember how embarrassing this was, Malachi? If you're watching, which I know you are, you watch every week. You remember how embarrassing it was last time we went to Knoxville? And the pictures of DeMarco Helms and just not making an adjustment, Pete Golding running a safety out there and them having that mismatch over and over and over again. Jaylen Hyde has 5 touchdowns in that one game. Like, we got to have some pride. And it starts with some defensive leadership like that. And the other one's Keon Sabb, because, listen, Nico will turn the ball over. Nico, I thought, was going to be this incredible, incredible quarterback, and he may still turn it on. Hopefully it's not this weekend. I still believe in his talent because he has so much of it. Like, he is just dripping with unbelievable physical talent. But even last week, like, I keep waiting for the light to come on. Last week, I'm watching that Florida game, and they're, backs against the wall. They're deep in their own territory. They get this big 4th down stop on a play. By the way, you know how I feel about Florida fans right now. Everyone's mad about Billy Napier running that jet sweep on 4th down. If what's his name, DJ Lagway, keeps that ball, he walks into the end zone.
Yeah,
but like, it's 4th down. They get the ball back, and they make it a point after the 1st down that Nico looked at Josh Heupel. He's like, "Let's go! Like, now we can go." Bros, it was an interception like 2 plays later. One of the funniest things I've ever seen. It was like, now we can go. Actually, no, defense, you got to go back on the field.
That's what he was trying to say. He was like, y'all get ready.
Dude, it was like, but I just feel like those 2 defensive, we have to win the turnover battle if we're going to win this game. Definitely cannot get in a situation where you are having your backs against the own walls. And really, man, it's because of the offense. I kept thinking at the start of the year, this team's going to score 40 every game no matter what. You look at the last 2 weeks, they have not been able to do that. They've scored 35 and they scored 27 against South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
So I want the offense to get back to where it was, and hopefully it will. But at the same time, man, that the back end of that secondary is the one that was flimsiest against Tennessee the last time they were there. I need Keon Sabb against Western Kentucky to show up. I need Malachi, like the one that's been projected in some of like the early rounds of the draft. I need him to show up if Bama's going to win this game.
I will say this, and I think, and I could be way wrong, but I've been trying to think about, okay, the teams that can really match up, match up with limited guys in coverage against Tennessee's offense, like, that's the better off you're going to be. Obviously, Alabama couldn't do it a couple of years ago. DeMarco Helms, like, they were wanting to try to commit him to the box, but they really couldn't.
No.
So he was kind of in no man's land. I don't think he was put in a position to be successful as far as the vertical routes.
Fair.
And they started doing like some 3-man front stuff. It's like, okay, if we're not pressuring with 4, we can't commit more to stopping the run. We can't really commit more as far as getting after Hendon Hooker. So let's start, dropping 8. Let's just rush 3, try to cover as much as we can. And just, that's anytime you get in that position defensively, you're in really rough shape.
Yeah.
But, I do worry about Alabama's ability with some of their youth and, the fact that, I don't think Malachi Moore is the best cover guy. Like, I mean, he's great leadership. He's willing to come up and hit you. But as far as, if you can get him in some man-to-man situations, I don't think he's going to hold up great on that front. He really never has. If you can, obviously they're going to try to use him as an over-the-top safety as much as possible. He'll have to be ready. I don't think he's got, just elite deep speed or anything like that. I don't think the range is like I do think Keon Sabb's got really good range.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to be important in this game. But just I wouldn't be shocked if I was Alabama. My approach would be, we're going to give up some explosives. Now, granted, that some people might say, okay, but Tennessee, that hadn't been their offense. So why are you conceding that going in? They've actually been pretty poor the last couple of weeks. if I'm watching Alabama's secondary, I know. I mean, when you've got Shane Beamer who's looking at a quarterback like Lenoris Sellers, and he has not been a very good passer for the entire year, and he's telling you in the post game, we knew we were going to have some opportunities downfield. We really like some of those matchups. If they're thinking it, everybody's thinking it. And that is what Josh Heupel has predicated his offense on, are those vertical shots. And you haven't seen it as much under Nico, but they're going, especially with the home crowd. You want to get, the place to erupt, you turn the football over, or you hit some vertical shot.
Yeah.
And that place is going to go absolutely crazy. So they're going to. And if I was Alabama, I would probably concede that's going to happen once. It might happen twice, but we've got to be super aggressive. And by taking some of those risks, we might give up one of those plays, but we have to make Nico very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, agreed.
Next for me, talking about, we talk about Nico and the importance of Tennessee's offense. They want to run the football.
Yeah.
That's something that we don't talk about enough. And I mean, I do feel like people have been highlighting that a lot this week. Nick Saban, a few weeks ago, he was talking about Tennessee's offense on game day, and he highlighted that very thing. And so I think Alabama's inside linebackers, because 60% of the time Tennessee is running the football inside the tackles. And, a 60-40 split might not seem too lopsided. That is way above average.
Way above average.
Especially when you have a dual threat quarterback like Nico, who you haven't been utilizing a ton on that front. Also think that's a wrinkle they're going to throw in.
Yeah.
But when you're using your quarterback, a lot of it's on perimeter runs. So that includes that. So 60% interior run. I mean, I think Tim Keenan and Tim Smith and all those guys are going to be important, but I think Alabama's two inside linebackers, Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson, and really Justin Jefferson too. I think he's going to have a big part in this as well, because he's a great space player.
Hard to keep him off the field.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say this: when you talk about spreading guys out, Justin Jefferson almost gives you DB-like athleticism. So you put that, quote unquote, extra defensive back on the field, even though not really, but you're still getting a really good run presence as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if he had a big role in this game. But whoever's out there at inside linebacker, they've been catching a little bit. They need to be really aggressive, getting downhill, forcing Tennessee. Tennessee's been shooting themselves in the foot as far as putting themselves in unfavorable situations. Penalties have been putting them behind the sticks. Sacks, they've been getting off schedule offensively a lot.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that continues. Don't let them get in a rhythm. Put Nico in third and long situations, or at least third and medians at the very least, and let your pass rush tee off. It might not be the best pass rush in how the defense is designed, but if you can put yourself in those situations, you can mix up being really aggressive and also taking some chances as far as maybe not being as aggressive, knowing you got a little bit of room to work with.
Yeah, that's fair. I need both of them to show up, man. It hasn't. Listen, you can put however much stock you want to into PFF stuff. I don't know how they come up with those numbers. I just don't. It's it's so brilliant, because we all, dude, it is at LouisianaSports.com and ESPN Baton Rouge, like my main job. It's it's some of our biggest content. It's like, hey, did you and it's amazing, because people are like, oh, like I see a name and I see numbers, and I am tractor beam, I'm going right towards it. But bro, they could wake up the next day and be like, did you know that Jahad Campbell graded a 42.3? And people were like, oh, no.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I don't think
make up the number.
I think Deontay Lawson has had 2 good games according to PFF his entire career at Alabama. So yeah.
Okay, where do I want to go next? I'm going to do at least one more, and then I have a question for you before we wrap up, which is not right now, but how long are we going for today? 30 or an hour?
No, not an hour, but I mean, we can go for as long as we need to. Okay, I mean, cool. If this might be a 40-minute conversation, it might be 45.
Yeah,
who knows?
Catch up, brother.
We might be talking till kickoff. Let's just see where this goes.
Yeah, I have date night tonight, and Allie would chop my blank off if we missed.
I'm sure she would understand. I mean,
yeah, she's really understood the last couple weeks, brother. Dude,
yeah,
I will say this. I don't think we talked after the Vanderbilt game. She showed up.
We did,
and had a 12-pack of beer and a bottle of Fireball, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I think I was in such shock. I was like, "I'm fine. I'm fine." She's like, "Okay." Okay, so anyway, back to this. I do want to get your question for you of your favorite Bama-Tennessee moment of all time in your lifetime. And you're younger than I am, but because I have a unique one, I think that's pretty cool. We'll share that at the end. The next one for me, I'm gonna quote Courtney Upshaw, partially because his name sounds familiar to what I'm about to say, and because the number he brought up at the national championship. Touch that thing, foe. Touch that thing, foe. Q Rusaw, number 4. Please get your ass in the backfield all day long. You have been so good at times coming off the edge, and it's something this team has really lacked. Also, I hope he gets some help, not just from the other edge rush, but like Kane Womack going into South Carolina. Clint and I talked about this off air. Okay, and I am a firm believer in this, and I don't think it's even that debatable. Going into last week against South Carolina, Alabama had the lowest blitz rate of any team in the country. Okay, like 6.7% blitz rate from the defense. We're getting picked apart, flat out. Just getting picked apart. The pass rush is not good enough to get home. You don't have Chris Braswell. You don't have Dallas Turner. You don't have Will Anderson, obviously, some of those guys like that. You've got to bring some help, and you've got to get some help off the edge. I think Q Rusaw is a guy that has been the best pass rusher for Bama this year. Quay Rusaw is a Q. I keep calling him Q.
Quay. You got
Right.
Q Robinson, and Quay Rusaw.
Here's the thing, man. I think that this could be a breakout game for him. Somebody always has a shining moment, it feels like, in this game. Whether it's Trayvon Diggs in 2021 with that return for a touchdown, whether it's Dallas Turner.
Yep.
Dude, Dallas Turner could have been a 2-time. Like in 2022, he was 4 minutes away from you. Listen, like there's one thing I feel very confident in going into this weekend. It's that we're not going to have a situation where we put the game on ice and then some ref pulls a flag out of his pocket when Kool-Aid's 40 yards downfield about to return something for a touchdown. I don't think that's going to happen. That being said, I need us to be in the backfield. I need them to be in second and third and long and like get some pressure on the quarterback. And I think it starts with Quay Rusaw. Also, my computer is somehow about to die.
Hopefully that didn't happen.
No.
But yes, no, I agree. Now here's the thing. Rusaw has been banged up. He's been playing through it the last several weeks. He missed one game, I believe. And he has not been the same player, period.
Right.
When you go watch him compared to now, I don't know if this is the type of injury that's going to last for a very long time. And it's like he's just going to have to deal with it for the rest of the year, or, I'm assuming he's getting closer and closer to 100% the further you get from it. But yeah, I think with Rusaw, he's going to be a guy who I'm hoping he's closer to 100%. And if he is, I certainly think he can make a major impact in this game. I do wonder, like, as far as the blitz rate, that really confuses me. That's been a big part of Kane Womack's defense. Like, he would have a rotation of off-ball linebackers. He had 3 of them at South Alabama, and he was sending those cats quite a bit. And so, part of me thinks that's how game script's kind of playing out. Like, there's situations, like how many obvious passing situations are you getting teams in when they're constantly moving the sticks? I don't know. I don't know if it's just been game script or what, but I do agree he has to be more aggressive. I think the more aggressive you are, against Georgia, they were very, very aggressive, and it definitely put Carson Beck kind of playing on his heels. Did not look comfortable at all in that first half.
No.
So I think that definitely matters. For me, my final kind of matchup to watch, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I want to talk about it again here. That's James Pierce versus Elijah Pritchett. Now, you can technically make that Elijah Pritchett / Caden Proctor. I think both tackles, but with Pierce, he's played like just over 200 snaps this year, and 120 of them have come off of the left side of the defense, which means the right side of the offense. So he's going to be about 60% of the time, if based off of averages. And it's possible that Tennessee has a game plan where it's like, we like Pierce against Pritchett exclusively, and so he plays pretty much on the left side for the defense the entire game or most of the game. But I got a feeling, based off of averages, you'll see about a 60-40 split. Pritchett has not been the best in pass protection. I do think that, you've got to stay ahead of the sticks and not allow James Pierce to get some of those where he can just tee off on it.
Yeah.
They're in big trouble if that happens. He's going to make some impact plays. There's no doubt about it. He is not having the kind of year everybody expected, mostly because he's kind of getting the Will Anderson treatment from a couple of years ago. But he's a guy to certainly keep an eye on. And with the way that Pritchett can struggle in pass protection, that's not, a recipe that you really want. So how you aid Elijah Pritchett, if you do find yourself in some of those obvious passing situations, they like to motion to empty a lot. I don't know that I would do that in this game. I really don't. I'd probably keep a running back in, give him some tight end help when it requires, and then stay ahead of the sticks and don't put yourself in any obvious or try to limit your obvious passing situations to where, and it has to be situational too. Like, it can't just be third downs. Guess what? At the end of the first half last week against South Carolina knew Alabama was going to be throwing the football because how much time was left. So if you find yourself in that situation, I understand Kalen DeBoer is an aggressive offensive coach. I understand that. Be more situationally aware, though. Understand that you don't want to hand, Tennessee extra momentum going into the half with that crowd, because that second half will be rocking. You need to really try to go into halftime if you can with as much momentum as possible, and make that crowd really uneasy. But I think that Pierce versus Pritchett is going to be one to keep an eye on.
I agree. That was one of my other ones. So that's all I got, man. That's the
question.
I do have the question for you,
and it was,
I'll tell you mine first so you can think.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite moment, and I will say, dude, the ones that stand out the most to me, 2018, that pass that Tua threw to Jaylen Waddle when Bama beat them like 58-21. That was awesome.
Was that that was the Bo Scarborough double flip, right?
That's 2016.
Okay.
2016 was top 10 matchup. Bama runs them out of the building 49-10. Ronnie Harrison, I think they put him up 14-0 in the first quarter. That was actually the game-winning touchdown. Scored in offense, defense, and special teams. Just
good days.
That was the best. That was like that 2016 team was so much fun, man. That was one of my favorites. 2015 was not one of my favorites, but it was an all-time moment when Henry scores. You go up like 19-14, and then Ryan Anderson off the edge to force the fumble, and then A'Shawn Robinson at 330 pounds with a one-handed scoop. Just unbelievable. 2009 was awesome. 2005 was miserable for the entire 58 minutes. 58 minutes, man. I was watching that game in my dorm after baseball practice in college, my sophomore year, in my cleats. Because the game started at 3:30.
Wait. In 2005?
Huh?
In 2005?
Shut up. I'm old. I had to like the game started at 3:30. That's like the second week in like a month that I had to sprint from the baseball field to my apartment, up 3 flights of stairs. It was the Florida game was at 3:30 that like a couple weeks beforehand. And this one, I just sat on the couch like miserable for like 3 hours wearing my baseball cleats because I was just it was awful. My all-time favorite, huh?
What an ending, though.
What an ending. Yeah. My all-time favorite. Last year was awesome. Last year down 20-7 and hanging on for dear life in the first half. But my all-time favorite in 2002, and a lot of you are too young to remember this, but this team used to beat us a lot. And I watched them beat us for 7 straight years. I watched the first play of the game in 95 with Peyton Manning hitting Joey Ken or Nash or whoever the hell it was, Peerless Price. They're all the same. 96, I watched us lose 20-13 on the same day the Yankees beat the Braves to win the World Series. That was a bad day for me. 97 was tough. I watched Peyton sing Rocky Top in our end zone at Legion Field. 99, Jamal Lewis, future regular of mine at Houston's and Whitehall Tavern in Atlanta. I watched him and T. Martin sing "We Own Alabama" to the tune of "Sweet Home Alabama" in our end zone, and Brian Denny, because they had beat us for the 5th straight time. But in 2002, we had lost 7 straight games to Tennessee. And this is 2002, Clint. So I'm a sophomore in high school. So this is before cell phones and all that kind of crap, like that you can get updates on phones. The Rolling Stones were in town in Atlanta. I checked the mail before we left. I got a handwritten Christmas card from Tim Corbin and the staff at Vanderbilt. Not Christmas card, just a recruiting letter, I mean. From Tim Corbin and the staff at Vanderbilt for baseball. Also got something in the mail from Jim Wells that day from Alabama. And I was like, this is the best day ever. Like, this is awesome. We go down to see the Rolling Stones, and the game is on at 7 o'clock or 7:30 that night, 7:45. So we put it on like my dad always did. He VHS recorded it. And then we would go back and rewatch the games instead of having movies like normal families. And
that's how you remember all this.
Yeah. And I remember we're sitting there and like No Doubt opens for the Stones. The Stones come out. We're at Turner Field in downtown Atlanta. My dad goes to the bathroom. He comes back and he's got this weird smile on his face. He's just like very happy. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, somebody had a portable TV in the bathroom, and we're up 14-7. Gerald Dixon just returned a what do you call it? For a touchdown. We're up 14-7 on Tennessee. And we're like, we finished the concert.
A portable TV in the bathroom?
Portable TV. Why are you focused on this? It's the least important part.
I would like okay.
So we go to the concert. Stones, awesome, great show. We drive home. We get home at like 1 a.m, Clint. Strike up the TV. Bama wins 34-14. Santonio Beard, Brody Croyle will have a great day. And it was just the perfect end to a perfect day. We snapped the streak of 7 straight losses in Neyland. And I remember I was so excited, man. We went to bed at like 3:30 or 4 a.m. I got up the next morning at 9 and watched it again. I was so pumped. But that is my favorite Tennessee Bama memory of all time.
Did you smoke a cigar?
I was 15, so probably.
I mean, I was way younger than you.
Thanks, man.
I actually lived in Sevierville, Tennessee for 3 years, from 99 to 01. Moved back, I think, at the beginning of 02. So I lived up there for 3 years, and I heard nothing nonsense. The streak had been going when I got there. Mm-hmm. It continued my entire time. I was a kid getting ragged by the other kids in school for being the Bama fan, just getting hammered by not bullies, but trash talkers. The second I moved back, and like you said, didn't have any way to contact any of those people. Don't know how they're doing today, but hopefully real bad. I hope they've enjoyed the last 17 years. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I mean, the second we moved back to my hometown, Athens, Alabama, up in North Alabama, that's when that game happened. Yeah. And I will say that felt like a pretty magical time. Do you have, see, here's the thing, man. I don't smoke, I'm not a big smoker. I will smoke a cigar every once in a while. The problem is anytime I smoke a cigar after this game, I don't just, casually do it. I'm talking to people. Mean? I'm chiefing big time, and I get myself every time I do it. I get real sick. I'm getting a real bad. I never learn my lesson because I smoke like 1 cigar a year, maybe 2, but it's normally for after this game. And so by the time I get around to smoking it again, I forgot. Hey, you need to slow down and be careful. And every time, man, I end up. Typically, if it's like a 2:30 kickoff, I'm spending the night games for like an hour in a real bad place. So we'll see how this turns out.
I'm not opposed to it. My dad smoked cigars my whole life, and so as much as I dislike him, I do love winning. I love winning. What's my favorite? One of my favorite quotes of all time. Mark Barron on that ESPN preseason series they did about Bama after the 2009 season. Second episode, the very end of it, they asked Mark Barron, they said, what's the best part about playing football at Alabama? He said, best part about playing football at Alabama? Winning.
Which, and I think that's what everybody wants to keep going for as long as possible.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Do you got anything else that you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I'll tell you off air F Tennessee, but I won't say it in front of the PG ears that are listening to this.
Okay. I just know Phil Fulmer listens to this show. I just feel like this would be a show he would enjoy. I
hope
especially
not.
You. I feel like
listen. First paper I ever wrote in college was about Milton, not Milton, Albert Means and Phil Fulmer and Logan Young. That was the first paper I ever wrote in college at Middle Tennessee State University. People were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I am unhinged.
You can't tell. You hide it well.
Yeah, right.
All right. We appreciate everybody listening in. This has been fun. Hopefully we're talking. You'll be joining us on the Sunday show once again. So hopefully we're saying good things. If they do lose, how unhinged are you going to be?
I'm going to be pretty upset because then you can't lose another game. You had to get out of jail free card after Georgia, and you blew it against Vandy. So I'm going to be pretty upset. It also depends. Like I thought in the preseason that we would lose this game, but it depends on how they lose. If you get blown out, or if it's like a lack of effort and a bunch of dumb mistakes like South Carolina and Vandy, then I have a problem. But I got to run either way.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Chris. We'll do this again soon. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and get over to covercrimson.com. It's only $1 for the first month. That is going to be ending Sunday.
Okay.
I'm still trying to work it out to get an extra week, but I'm fighting a losing battle. So you only got a little bit of time to subscribe over at covercrimson.com, and we will talk to you guys soon. Appreciate you, Chris.